everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Brewer Spotlight. I'm your host, Ed, and with me today I have...
I am Steve Trinka.
And how many years have you been brewing, Steve?
I've been brewing since 2009. Started as a hobby. My wife actually purchased all the equipment and my first recipe kit for our anniversary, whether it was I'm out of ideas of what to get you or get you out of the house. I'm not sure, but push comes to shove, and she bought me the thing I really love is beer. Now I can make my own.
Right on, right on. And how long have you been a member of Boss? How long have you been with us?
I think I'm on my 4th year of being a Boss member.
There we go. There we go. So that first beer that you got from your wife, what kind of beer was it? What was that first beer that you made?
Purchased all the ingredients through Northern Brewer out of Minnesota. So she got all the equipment and the kit that came with that, and it was their North Star Pale Ale. She knows that I'm a ale type of person. I like a pale ale. I like a good lager, but I like a pale ale, and if the night's right, I love a good, really good IPA, but not fruity beers. So the North Star Shining Star Pale Ale was the perfect kit for my first time trying beer.
All right. And I take it was a success. Usually we need those early successes to keep on in the hobby. So
absolutely. So a quick story there. I made a Mr. Beer, if you remember that. So the history of Mr. Beer, we all know in college you couldn't bring liquor or beer into the dorm, but if you brought water and then someone else brought the hops, you could make Mr. Beer in your room. So I did that, and what a disaster. The samples, the testing, everything went well until I let it sit in the atmosphere and carbonate like the direction said, but it was horrible to say the least. And I figured there was a way to improve that, but it took me 10 plus years to get back into the actual brewing and try to fix that.
All right. So what is your favorite style to brew, and is it the same type of style that you like to drink the most, or do you tend to focus on certain things and drink others when you're out and about?
So I like to go after the pale ales. I'm not a big stout fan. I'll have a stout, I'll have a porter, but they're, as we know, they're very heavy beers. And, I kind of go for the long haul. So if I could drink most of the day or some of the day, then that's better for me versus drinking just one beer because it's really heavy. So I lean towards the pale ales, the IPAs, and a good lager here and there. So I try to stay in that wheelhouse, and I brew those. I'll get into a Dunkelweizen or a Hefeweizen, and I'll brew those on occasion just to change it up a little bit. And I like all of those that I make as well.
All right. What would you say, like in a typical brew day, what's your favorite tool in the arsenal? Like what's your, like that key piece of equipment or kit that you like can't do without, like your favorite piece on brew day, like, or bottling or whatever? What would you say that is?
So to say I have a favorite piece, I don't know. They're all my favorite. I need the entire set. And I'm one of those, I don't want to say over the edge guys, but I have to have everything right, and I have to have everything sterilized and sanitized and in my way. So I've got basic equipment, and I follow the basic recipes, and everything's just calm and cool. So my pot, my boiling kettles, I purchase a new one every couple of years. My siphons, I think I've bought 2 siphons in the past since 2009. So the past 12, 13 years, I've only bought 2 siphons. I keep using the same ones. Tubing, I'll replace that. I do want to get a refractometer. I want to get one of those because I just use a hydrometer now. And that's probably my least favorite piece of equipment, because there's times when I brew that I don't even use that. If I'm using my tried and true recipes, I know what I'm doing. I don't even need to test anything. I know how it's coming out. So I think. And of course, it's that surprise at the end when you open the bottle or tap the keg, if I did everything right. So there's times where you can ask me the ABV and I have no idea. And there's other times where I actually do test it and I've got an idea, and I can keep that between five and 5.5 is pretty good for as far as I'm concerned.
All right. When you talk about, how you brew and certain things that you don't quite pay attention to the hydrometer, and that, it doesn't really matter, especially when you got a nice recipe that you've worked with, it's reliable, you know what's going on. What would you say is your brewing philosophy? Like, when you're brewing, are you looking for like balance to a beer? Are you going for extremes? Do you want flavor? Like what do you go for? What is your brewing philosophy when it comes to making beer?
So I look more for the flavor. We've heard the old antics. I'll take a Bud Light. Oh, you mean water? How about a Coors Light? Oh, you mean water with bubbles in it, and so forth. I do enjoy a good flavor, not heavy on the fruity side, but a good flavor to the beer. For my family that are Coors Light families, everything else, when I bring my beer to parties, I tell them it's a grown-up beer because it has taste, aroma, and flavor, and you're drinking a beer versus did I pick up beer or water? So my philosophy is if I like it, that's what I want to drink. And I brew to my taste, and I'm not worried about you, Ed. I'm not worried about you. I know your standards and I know where you come from and everything else, and that's great. And when I hand my beer out to my friends, if they don't tell me anything, I just don't give them that style again. If they tell me they like it, then I will put them on the list to call the next time I brew this particular style. But as a hobby and to make it fun, it's got to be all about, unfortunately, me and what I want to do, because I'm stuck. If I bottle, I have 48 bottles of beer that I need to drink. And I don't need it to be something that you may like per se. I want it to be something that I like. And, for X amount of years, it's been so much fun.
There you go. No, I completely get that. It's definitely a hobby about preference for sure. So I'm with you there. What would you say to like, so Kevin has been on this little thing before here, and he actually dropped your name as one of his inspirations for coming into brewing. And so like the question that I always ask people when I'm doing these is, what would you say to a new brewer starting out? Like, what is that key piece of advice that you would really want to hit home with that person to help them along in the hobby?
The best advice that I think anybody should be able to give as a home brewer is you cannot stress sterilization and sanitization enough. If one little microbe gets in there, the last thing you want to do is have someone drink a beer that knows what they're talking about and say, boy, it tastes like something got in there. Because that would be a bad omen for you, especially if you like it and the guy that knows what he's talking about doesn't like it and says, yeah, something got in there. What got in there? What step did something go wrong? And I believe that's where I came in with Mr. Beer. Something went wrong in sanitization, and it just spoiled the whole batch. So if you can latch onto someone and watch them brew a beer, so to throw Kevin back in here, for a couple of years, I made beer and brought it to Kevin, and he enjoyed it. He said he enjoyed it, so I brought him more. And finally, he says, I want to try this. I think it took me a solid year to get him to come over and watch me brew a batch of beer. And he brewed with me. And I don't know, boss, did I create a monster with Kevin? I think I did.
I think so. I think so. He's definitely happy with his setup at this point, and he's down the rabbit hole as much as any of us. So, and and that's what it's all about,
Yep.
So normally this would be the part where we would share a beer.
Okay.
And we were very fortunate to have our own shared brew day not too long ago, and you brought me one of these. And
I have one too, through the magic and science of television.
so we can actually still do a virtual beer share here. But as I'm pouring this, why don't you tell the world what we're pouring? And
hold on, let me get my
talk about
cool
it.
glass in here. I'm not good with cameras. It's the
I got you
Trinket
covered,
Tap
man.
House.
I got you covered.
All right. So this is, I don't even know how to explain it. I came across a weird combination of beer. It was a coffee ale. And I thought I can reproduce that because it was actually very delicious. So 2 years, I considered, how can I make this? What can I do to make it coffee? Can I just throw coffee beans in the secondary and let that leach off of there? And that's a great idea, but you don't control the coffee flavor then. Not everybody drinks coffee per se. When you go to Starbucks, for example, it's not the coffee you like, it's their creamers and sugars and all their additives that people really enjoy from Starbucks and how they make their foam. So this is just coffee to be put in here. So if I just throw beans in there, you lose control of how much actual flavor went in there. So I thought, I'm going to make 5 gallons of coffee and I'm going to boil that and I'm going to add hops and I stopped like a scratch of a record. And I said, I really don't like boiled coffee. So why would I continue to brew once I boiled the coffee? So long story short, I'm in Disney World in October, having a conversation with my cousin, my wife, their spouses, and a friend of theirs from Florida or from Elgin. And you know how you zone out of conversations? I completely zone out and I yell out, I got it. And they all looked at me like I was an idiot. And at that moment, I just thanked them and kept my thought in my head. So when you brew a batch of beer, you lose volume in a boil. So we always top off to try to get that 5 gallons. And I thought, why not top off with coffee? So I made 1.5 gallons of coffee that I like to drink. It was just whatever was in my cabinet. So I can always alter that now with different profiles from coffee makers. But I made 1.5 gallons of coffee. And when I brewed, I ended up with a volume of right about just under 4 gallons. So I topped off with just over 1 gallon of room temperature, cold, just to bring it down so I could add pitch my yeast. So I brought it down to that temperature and I added that to top off with. And the yeast acted, I use Safe Ale 05 yeast. It's one of my favorite go-tos to just make a batch of beer and get it over with and not have a lot of activity. The yeast acted exactly like it did every other time I've used it. And my timing, I went 10 days. Fermentation, I thought was complete. So I racked it to secondary. I let it sit there for 8 days and then I bottled it. This is actually its birthday today. So it's ready to drink today. And I'm happy with the head that's on here. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the lacing as we drink this. And I personally like the flavor. I can taste the coffee. I was scared. I used minimal hops. I only used 2 ounces of Cascade hops through the whole boil, one at 60 minutes and one at 45 minutes. So the bittering and everything else, it's a very low hop beer because I didn't want the bitterness of the hops to overtake the bitterness of the coffee. And I almost think that they're fighting inside this glass right now to see who's the best. And I think they're both winning.
I like it. Yeah, it's definitely got that Cascade hop flavor to it. And I was shocked by how the coffee plays with it. Like it's such a unique beer. Like it's one of those things that like I would not have thought that this would have worked until I had it. And then when I had it, I was like, man, that's solid. Like it made me a believer because I'm not brave enough to pull that combo together. Like that's just not me, But
we talked about it and I bounced a couple of my ideas off you and
yeah.
you're just going, yeah, whatever, dude. Is that what you want to do? Okay, go ahead, man.
Yeah, like whatever. I said,
you obviously never poured 48 beers down the sink. You go ahead and try what you want to do.
some of the best ideas are born out of craziness sometimes, and this was solid, man. I was definitely very pleasantly surprised when I put this up. So I was very thankful that you were gracious enough to allow me to try it, especially here on camera as well. So,
Right. Yeah, this is a big step for me.
yeah. Well, the age of technology and the wonderful isolation of 2021 here, this is what we got to work with now. So we'll make it work. So, but no, this was wonderful. And I know I had told you off camera here, like I would consider throwing this into the experimental beer category in a competition. I think it's that good. It's a very unique flavor combination. You hear a lot of coffee stouts and coffee porters, and yes, those play very nicely together. And you hear coffee amber ale or coffee pale ale, and it's like, wait, what? No, that's not right. And then you have it like this. And you're right. I think that topping off with the coffee the way you did it, I think that is a great way to control it. Had it been too overpowering, okay, I add, a quarter gallon less or whatever on the next pass and kind of go from there. It's a wonderful way to control it. Now we have to figure out what your secret coffee recipe is. And then as long as we brew that consistently, then you'll be able to make this again. That's the trick.
That comes from the firehouse. We like it thick and chewy.
There you go. There we go. All right. No, very, very wonderful beer. And I appreciate you sharing. So that is where we're going to call it a day here for the Brewer Spotlight. Boss, when you see Steve here at the next meeting, give him a shout out and say hello and swap stories. So this has been your Brewer Spotlight. Cheers all and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Cheers.